softly spoken, with no strings tying you to me.
We have this was peer-reviewed with the Advances in Financial Technology. This was done with the Association for Computing Machinery, the ACM. So as far as our consensus protocol is concerned, it is really honestly the state of the art relative to what's been done before. And I'd be happy to answer questions. I can talk to you about this afterwards, and I'll field any other questions from the audience now.
My aim or my goal of today is to provide you, let's say, an insight to the following topics. So today we're going to speak about the general view, let's say this way, in Switzerland about digital assets. We're going to talk how Switzerland regulates them and also how are they taxed. We are going to talk about some licenses required if you do or are involved with cryptocurrencies. And at the end, I'm going to update you about the current initiatives of the Swiss government. I think you have any context. Okay. Well, in general, we have these two tax systems, these two tax regimes. Wealth tax will apply if you hold cryptocurrencies. It's comparable to your deposits, of your stocks and your bank. So it's similar. But however, there are no income tax. This is on the individual levels. So for legal entities, you have three tax categories. You have capital tax, corporate income tax. However, you are exempt from the value-added tax. Yeah. Now let's talk a little bit about the money transmission and some AML requirements. So, if you have seen that many ICOs were performed out of Switzerland. So if you do this kind of things, you may be subject to AML and KYC. KYC means know your customer. Basically, you need to identify the investor and you need to track the source of funds because AML is very important. In Switzerland, we differentiate basically two main groups. The first groups are typically the banking sector, so companies like banks themselves and securities dealers, they are belonging to the banking sector. Then we have the non-banking sector. Let's jump to the secondary market. The secondary market is the market where you trade a financial instrument, And that means, basically, we can refer that to the previous pages. So if you trade asset tokens, again, you need to have a proper license, the securities dealer license. Yes, I'm approaching the end of my presentation. Just want to tell you about the Swiss initiative for promoting fintechs. Basically, it is composed of three complementary pillars. The first pillar is so-called a sandbox concept. It means a startup can take up deposit from the public up to 1 million, right? However, this money cannot be invested. It shall not bear interest. And then there's a second category, basically for settlements. That means the money that the company accepts needs to be transacted within a period of time, in this case, within 60 days. Now, beginning of this year, the Swiss government introduces a new license category. It's within the existing banking regulations. It calls a fintech license. A fintech license is basically for those startups who accept deposit from the Republic up to 100 million, right? And however, these deposits cannot be invested and they must not bear an interest. These are the requirements. And the startup must be in Switzerland and the business must be conducted in Switzerland too. So again, if a company applies for the fintech license, so what can a company do with that? Well, let's talk a little bit about potential use cases. So I listed here three use cases. So if you're involved in payment or trading services, this could be something of interest for your company. Or if you are a wallet provider for crypto assets, or the last category, if you are a broker. So this fintech license gives you a start. You can grow with your business. And if you exceed 100 millions, then you need to apply for a proper FINMA license. Yes, my goal was to give you an overview into the regulation of digital assets in Switzerland.
주제의 영역입니다. 그래서 예전 같은 경우에는 우리가 이제 어느 나라에서 ICO를 하겠다, 어느 나라에서 STO를 하겠다, 이런 이유 때문에 각국의 국제 현안들을 우리가 많이 파악을 했는데 이제는 이제 그런 개별적인 국가에서의 프로젝트보다도 이제 이 규제가 점점 더 글로벌하게 가고 있기 때문에 규제 동향을 파악하는 걸 가지고 있기 때문에 우리가 어떤 비즈니스를 해야겠다라고 하는 것들을 이제 한번 가늠해보는 그런 시간이 될 것 같습니다. 특히 이제 오늘 특별히 이제 저희가 평소에는 많이 듣지 못했던 이제 스위스하고 일본에서 또 전문가분들이 오셨기 때문에 제가 이제 몇 가지 토픽에 대해서 각국의 상황을 같이 한번 나누면서 이제 얘기를 좀 풀어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 이제 첫 번째 이슈는 이제 용어에 대한 문제입니다. 우리나라 같은 경우에는 보통 이제 암호화폐라는 말이 이제 가장 널리 쓰이고 있는데 우리나라 정부 같은 경우는 암호화폐라는 말을 안 쓰고 가상통화라는 말을 쓰고 있습니다. 그 이유는 이제 이거는 통화가 아니다, 화폐가 아니다, 통화다. 이런 의미죠. 그러니까 통화라는 거는 이제 화폐를 포함하는 조금 넓은 개념입니다. 그리고 이게 꼭 암호화 기술이 사용되는 것이 아니라 왠지 암호라는 말을 쓰게 되면 이제 신뢰성을 주기 때문에 그래서 이제 가상통화라는 말을 쓰고 있습니다. 근데 최근에 이제 FATF, FATF 가이드라인에서는 이제 가상 자산이라는 표현을 쓰기 시작했어요. 그 말은 이건 통화가 아니라 자산이다라는 개념이죠. 그래서 이 이제 암호화폐를 어떤 용어로 부르느냐가 어떻게 보면은 이제 정부나 주재권에서 바라보는 암호화폐에 대한 시각을 보여준다고 볼 수 있습니다. 그래서 제가 이제 국가별로 유럽 변호사님들 순서대로 해서 각국에서 이런 이제 암호화폐와 관련된 용어들이 어떻게 쓰이고 있고 그렇게 용어가 쓰이는 것에 대한 제도적인 임플리케이션은 뭔지 간단히 의견을 좀 들어보도록 하겠습니다.
Okay, this is Ken Kawai from Tokyo. I've been here quite often. Last year 5 times, this year 3 times, almost to speak or in the blockchain conference or visiting some of our clients here. So as for the question from one, actually in Japan, the regulation on crypto started 2.5 years ago. At that time, it was named as virtual currency at the time. But yeah, so as you may know, we experienced lots of severe experience. Then the government would like to change the law.
Self-regulatory organization that is sufficient, and that's a way more lean process to become such a member. I recently talked to the CEO of the biggest SRO, it's called self-regulatory organization, that have the highest number of blockchain companies as members, and he said the process takes 3 to 5 weeks to become a member. That's the theory. In reality, it's maybe 2 months, but nevertheless, if you're after 2 months and you might invest some money for lawyers and regulatory consulting, so it's maybe about $20,000. So you can invest $20,000. It takes 2 months, and you're a regulated financial intermediary in Switzerland. I think that's very pragmatic, at least from Swiss perspective. So I'm very happy with that system. So I think the challenges are not the rules itself, but its implementation.
우선 일단 FATF 가이드라인도 그렇게 밝히고 있는데 지금 이번 6월에 나온 가이던스 취지는 기존의 증권법에 따른 규제에서 커버되는 영역은 건드리지 않고 새롭게 지금 발생하고 있는 이슈들에 대한 자금세탁 방지 의무를 좀 강화하겠다는 취지이고요. 싱가포르도 마찬가지로 일단 우선 그 기존의 증권법에 따라서 이제 규제 대상이 되는 그런 영역, 그러니까 소위 말하는 증권형 토큰이라고 하죠. 그런 건 이제 기존의 증권법에 따라서 처리를 할 것이고 지금 새로 이제 만들어진 PSX에 따라서 나머지 토큰들이 이제 AML, CFT 이제 그 의무들을 다 할 텐데요. 사실 이제 법령 자체가 가이드라인이 이제 만들어지기 이전에 이미 기재 통과가 됐기 때문에 지금 FATF 가이드라인을 많이 반영하지 못한 것이 사실입니다. 이 부분을 지금 싱가포르도 인지를 하고 있고 그래서 지금 올해 6월에 이 PSX의 그 AML, CFT 부분에 대해서 따로 컨설테이션 페이퍼를 이제 요구를 해서 7월 5일인가요? 그때까지 이제 의견을 받았고요. 취합을 해서 지금 법 개정이 예정이 되어 있는데요. 법 개정을 바로 할 건 아니고 말씀하신 대로 기술적인 문제들이 많잖아요. 여기도 지금 이미 지금 시행령의 개념이 됐다는 케이스코트라고 있는데 그 밑에 보시면은 FATF의 기준들은 많이 들어가 있어요. 그러니까 발신일이 디지털 토큰 같은 경우에는 수침의 정보까지 이제 어느 정도 입력을 해야 되고 하지만 어떤 식으로 입력을 할지 그 프로토콜은 어떤 식으로 통일될지에 대한 내용은 전혀 들어가 있지 않기 때문에 그런 부분에 대한 이슈들을 정리해서 2020년 말까지 법 개정이 가능할 거라고 지금 싱가포르 마스에서는 말을 하고 있는 상황이고요. 시행령 같은 경우에는 좀 촘촘히 되어 있어서 설명을 좀 드리자면은 지금 FATF 가이드라인에는 USD나 유로 1000을 기준으로 해서 이제 CDD 의무를 그 이상은 의무고 그 이하는 각 나라의 자율적인 사항으로 규제를 하고 있는데 싱가포르 같은 경우에는 이제 1500 SGD를 기준으로 정해서 그 이하의 경우에도 CDD를 부과하고 있고 그 이상의 경우에는 이제 발신자의 뭐 원래는 이름이랑 계좌 정보만 알고 있으면 되는데 이제 뭐 아이디 정보라든가 거주시라든가 이런 또 추가적인 정보를 많이 요구할 것을 지금 예정하고 있고요. 그리고 이제 기존의 증권법이나 보험업이나 신탁법에 따른 라이센스를 받은 고객들에 연결되어 있는 경우에는 이제 이거 새로운 용어는 아니고 Simplified CDD라고 해서 단순화된 CDD 절차들이 있거든요. 그래서 그런 식으로 조금 CDD 의무를 완화시켜서 어떻게 보면은 기존 금융기관들과 협업을 할 수 있는 방법을 좀 마련해 놓은 지금 그런 상황입니다. 기술적인 부분은 저도 지금 좀 궁금한 상황이고 그 바스에서도 그런 테크니컬 리스크를 인지하고 있어서 그 부분을 평가라고 하고 있어요. 그리고 지금 그 부분은 지금 기다리고 있는 상황입니다.
네, 저희가 30분을 배당받았는데 시간이 거의 갔습니다. 그래서 마지막으로 제가 이제 국가별로 질문을 좀 드리고 그리고 여기 오신 분들이 뭐 강의를 듣기 위해서 오신 분도 계시지만 또 이제 네트워킹을 위해서 오신 분도 계시기 때문에 특히나 우리 켄과 뉴욕은 이제 어떤 지금 업무를 하고 있고 또 어떤 곳에서 지금 있는지 같이 얘기를 해주시면 좋겠습니다. 먼저 켄에게 제가 질문드리고 싶은 거는 일본이 이제 다른 나라에 비해서 규제 상황이 되게 엄격한데 과연 일본에서의 블록체인 산업에서는 어떠한 기회가 있는지 또 한국 기업들에게 또 소개할 만한 것들이 있으면 그것들을 좀 말씀해 주시면 좋겠습니다.
You're actually one said to me that Japan is a very highly regulated country in terms of cryptos. But of course, we have some room to operate without regulations, such as blockchain games using NFTs. That's one of the interesting area because Japan is a big anime games country, right? So this is one of the opportunities. So I think that there are lots of game companies in Korea, so maybe they have a chance to provide their service to Japanese residents. And also, the other thing is that SDO regulations will start next year, so they will explicitly include digital securities into the our securities law that ignites the interest from the traditional financial institutions. So yesterday, MUFG, Mitsubishi UFJ Group, the biggest Japanese financial entities, conglomerates, announced that they are going to establish digital asset platform, including security tokens like digitalized corporate bonds or these kind of things. So that makes, so currently, if you would like to buy corporate bonds, you need to pay at least maybe so $10,000. But you'll be able to invest in digitalized corporate bonds maybe from $100 or something like that. So the entity involved in that system is Mitsubishi Corporation, the biggest trading company, and also Securitize in San Francisco. They are providing the STO platform. So this could be a very interesting area of business that will grow in Japan. So I pass it to you.
I have a different question for you. That we already know Switzerland has a solid financial system and blockchain related financial system is very solid and concisely regulated. So, but our concern is the cost and the time of conducting business in Switzerland. What is the critical?
Well, for sure labor costs are higher than elsewhere, but I see a few advantages if you run your blockchain business in Switzerland. First of all, the government is very crypto-friendly, so the General Council goes regularly to the Crypto Valley in Zug. We started with the Ethereum Foundation back in 2014, if I remember correctly. And secondly, we have this dual system. So if you want to become a regulated financial intermediary in Switzerland, as long as you don't want to be a bank or a security dealer for a security token, actually, if you want to do an exchange with payment token, that's not under that regulation. You can become a member of a self-regulatory organization. It takes you 2 months. You spend a little bit of money, at least a little bit from the Swiss perspective, and you're regulated financial intermediary in Switzerland. So I find this process very
하크네티는 저희 기록했습니다. 저희는 스위스 주프에 저희 재단이 있고요. 재단 운영은 이사 3인이 하고 있습니다. 파운더는 스위스 사람이고요. 제가 마케팅을 담당하고 있고 윤호수 이사가 27년 경력의 개발자인데 개발을 총괄하고 있고요. 실제 개발은 한국에서 하고 있습니다. 보스 재단이 설립한 100% 지분을 갖고 있는 고스트 플랫폼 파운데이션 코리아가 경영을 맡고 있고요. 거기에 자국적 팀으로 구성이 되어 있고요. 그래서 한국 사람들이 기획해서 시작했지만 진정한 글로벌 프로젝트를 지향하고 있고요. 아시는 바와 같이 지금 상장된 코인만 3,000개가 넘습니다. 그들이 눈에 보이지 않는 알트 전쟁을 하고 있는데요. 그럼 거기에서 저희 보스와라는 어떻게 차별화 전략을 갖고 있는가를 설명드리도록 하겠습니다. 근데 이제 그러한 거기서 보팅할 때에는 진정한 수익을 통한 집단 지성이 발휘될 수 있기 위해서는 어떤 콩그레스 펑션이 필요합니다. 그게 바로 이제 디포라인데요. 디포라는 수비 의사결정 솔루션입니다. 그래서 온라인상에서 제대로 된 수비가 이루어지려면 저희들은 익명성과 발언권의 동등성이 보장이 돼야 됩니다. 그렇게 해서 그렇게 나가고 있는 앱이고요. 이 서비스는 재단이 일대 주주로 있는 한국스마트인조 코사기라는 회사에서 개발하고 있고요. 이 코사기라는 회사는 동영업을 비롯한 특허를 글로벌 특허를 한 30개 갖고 있는 강소 기업입니다. 그래서 이건 저희가 개발되고 있는 크로스 베타 서비스 하고 있는 디포라 서비스에 몇 개 하나를 캡처한 건데요. 특히 이제 저희가 온라인상에서 이러한 수비 의사결정 툴을 통해서 직접 민주주의의 구현을 가능하게 하겠다고 하고 있는 건데 이미 직접 민주주의를 하고 있는 스위스 제네바에서 다음 주 화요일 날 저희 재단과 디포라와 같이 가가지고 스위스인을 대하고 저희가 리더를 할 계획이 있습니다. 그럼 이제 이러한 콩그레스 멤버가 보팅도 하고 모두 운동을 하는 것에 따른 인센티브는 바로 컴포네이션 리워드입니다. 저희 공학코인은 총 128년 동안 모두 49.5억 개가 49억 5천만 개가 발행되게 되어 있는데요. 그 중에서 절반이 넘는 27억 개가 컴포네이션 리워드입니다. 그러니까 콩그레스 멤버로 활동하면 굉장히 많은 보상을 줄 수 있게 되어 있습니다. 그리고 앞서 말씀드린 커머스 버짓이 18억 개로 설정이 되어 있는데요. 저희 코인 1고학 코인 값이 만약에 1,000원 간다면은 저 18억 개가 1조 8천억 원이 되는 거고요. 만원 간다면은 18조 원이 되는 겁니다. 그러니까 우리 생태계 발전을 위한 기금이 그렇게 조정이 되는 거고, 다른 메인 플랫폼들은 기능만을 제공하지만 저희는 기능 플러스 이러한 예산 또 의사결정 툴까지 제공하는 그런 경쟁 있는 플랫폼입니다. 그래서 우리 플랫폼을 이용하려고 하는 업체들이 단순히 기술적인 것만을 기대해서 신청할 수도 있고요. 그리고 예산이 필요한 분들은 예산에 대한 프로포즈를 낼 수 있습니다. 그러면 디포라 툴을 이용해서 콩그레스 멤버들이 보팅해가지고 결정이 되면은 그들한테 예산이 가게 되겠죠. 예산을 가게 되면서 일부는 저희가 만든 베터 월드 펀드에 기부할 수 있습니다. 그런 재단이 소유하고 있는 베터 월드 펀드가 4천만 개인데 그 포함을 가지고 재원을 내서 저희가 다양한 소셜 임팩트 활동을 할 겁니다. 예를 들면 이런 것들입니다. 흰수염 고래인데요. 고래는 지구상에 존재하는 가장 큰 동물입니다. 코끼리 10배가 넘죠. 근데 놀랍게도 이 고래 한 마리가 나무 35,000그루에 해당되는 CO2를 처리한다고 합니다. 그래서 우리가 고래 100마리를 살리면은 나무를 350만 그루 심는 효과가 동일한 효과가 벌어집니다. 이런 것들 저희가 스위스 대란 인식으로 같이 후원하는 걸 진행하고 있습니다. 그래서 저희들은 이런 플랫폼 통해서 가장 민주적인 플랫폼을 추구하고요. 그다음에 가장 좋은 성능, 풀로드의 가장 좋은 성능을 추구하고요. 그리고 완벽한 탈중앙화와 개방성을 구현해서 가장 안전한 플랫폼을 지향하고요. 그리고 선한 마음으로 좋은 지구를 살리는 좋은 활동들을 많이 할 생각을 갖고 있고요. 무엇보다도 가장 중요한 건 실용성입니다. 블록체인 기술이 제공하는 실용성 외에 저희는
So you see here an old banker, but the whole team is definitely from the financial world. Some people, we have young people, a lot of young people out of the blockchain world, and of course of regular IT. So I'm one of the co-founders. We mostly came out of the financial world, but our team is, I would say, average year dropped every month. We basically at the startup. So at the beginning we were very high age, and now we came down dramatically because we have a lot of young talent in our company. So, why SEBA? And this basically I experienced myself in about the end of 2015 to beginning of 2016 as a trader for 35 years. So I traded currencies and was attracted to Bitcoin and did not really understand too much about Bitcoin. I just knew that it was highly volatile. So basically I started investing myself into cryptocurrencies, but it was kind of it was kind of a field where there has been a lot of hidden dangers. So to pay money to somebody that is not regulated, not in Switzerland, to basically buy Bitcoins, and then once you sell the Bitcoins, trying to get the money back into your bank is basically, I'm not saying impossible, but it takes a long time. So once you were in the Bitcoin or in the crypto world, it was very hard to come back. Even the money started in a traditional bank, then the traditional bank basically had a very hard time to basically release the money again. So, and also, I think we had a lot of examples of ICOs which were, I would say, false premises, fraud, scams, and the whole crypto world got a bad reputation out of that. So basically what we saw, or what we felt was needed, was basically an urgent need for a licensed bank or licensed institution that also allows other people to invest safely and in a regulated way. So we basically, I see ourselves as I said before, the bridge, and everybody talks about institutional adoption of cryptocurrencies. This adoption can only happen, in my view, in our view, if you have a regulated gateway to get into this crypto world. And so you know who your counterparty is. The counterparty of your buying or selling of cryptocurrencies is a bank and a securities dealer like any other bank in Switzerland. So we have our value drivers: safety, transparency, and performance. I think safety comes, as I said, out of the FINMA license. We have capital requirements, so we are operating on the traditional assets like a regular bank. On the crypto assets, we have quite high requirements for capital. We have high security storage, we have a strong capital base, and actually safe and easy. I think the easy is also very important, and we put a lot of focus on the easy, because cryptocurrencies, when I started again in 15, it was super complicated. So private keys, trying to get the cryptos on the phone, then from the phone get them somewhere else, store them. All this stuff is basically taken care of by the bank. So the most important for me and us is basically crypto or any product should basically be easy. So far, crypto has been a lot of times complicated, and people do not understand basically what they have to do, and that's why they stay away, especially in the institutional space. Transparency. I think one of the big problems, not problems, but the issues we see is basically the knowledge about crypto. And there, I think we have a lot to do together with our competitors and other people in the field to basically educate people what cryptocurrencies are, what crypto assets will be, and how we're going to get there. So this is for us is a very big piece that we basically run separately from our business, if you want. So I'm going to come to that in a second. On the performance side, research, as we believe, is also super important, especially for the institutional space, cutting-edge products, and what we also do, we are chain agnostic, so all the tokenization can be on various platforms. As I said before, education is, in our view, super important. We have SEBAversity that's going to go live in December. It's an online platform open for anybody, so not just for customers of SEBA, it's open for the public, where we try to educate people and also show basically the possibilities of blockchain, distributed ledger, and crypto assets. For this, we partner up with universities in Switzerland and Frankfurt, and still looking for further partners. And in Asia, it would be very nice to have a few partners there too. We talked about to Singapore and Hong Kong. But it would also be very nice to have somebody out of Korea basically contributing towards the platform. So I think the underlying solution that we offer.
이미 비스트에서는 그런 포스트 퀀텀 크립토그래피를 만들고 있어요. PQC라고 해서 몇 가지 제안이 오고 있고, 기존에 우리가 사용하는 알고리즘에 대해서 양자에 대해서 어떻게 방어를 할 건지 이미 연구를 시작했습니다. 그리고 10년 정도 후에 스탠드를 발표하려고 했지만 10년 안에 뭔가 양자 컴퓨팅이 훨씬 발전하면 안 되니까 일단 저희가 빨리 내보낼 수 있는 스탠다드를 지금 내보내려고 하고 있습니다. 그러면 궁금하실 것 같은데 우리가 얼마나 시간입니까? 적어도 지금 현재 저희가 사용하는 RSA나 ECC, 퍼블릭 키 시스템을 깨려면 2000큐비트의 퀀텀 컴퓨터가 필요합니다. 그런데 구글이 얼마 전에 발표한 그 큐빗은 54큐빗이에요. 그래서 아직은 시간이 좀 남아있고, 굉장히 어려운 환경에서만 동작하는 시스템이기 때문에 이게 상용화되기는 매우 시간이 많이 남았다고 보여져요. 이미 크립토그래피 쪽에서 이미 준비를 하고 있고, 이쪽도 계속 발전하고 있지만 아마 둘 다 발전하기 위해서 크게 문제는 없을 거라고 보여져요. 그리고 만약에 이 시스템으로 방어할 수 없는 양자 컴퓨팅이 나온다고 하더라도 아무리 생각하면 크게 관심이 없을 거예요. 왜냐하면 기존의 파이낸셜 에셋에 비해서 크립토 에셋은 어떤 영역으로밖에 안 돼요. 저희 전통 금융기관들이 다 해킹되면 그 이후에 공격을 하게 될 겁니다. 제 강의는 여기까지 끝내겠습니다. 들어주셔서 감사합니다.
Because they're our customers. And what we are seeing is what Urs said, lower revenues, lower margins, and increased costs, reporting costs, compliance costs, etc. And for me, blockchain is a technology which can tackle this problem for two ways. One way is automation, so through smart contracts to automate processes to bring the cost down. On the other hand, to increase the product range. I mean, we have here crypto assets as an additional asset class. We have here today about security tokens. We have here about non-bankable assets becoming bankable. So this increases the revenue. And I think it's very important for a financial market hub to be at the forefront of those technologies because it's going to be a game changer. And probably similar to the internet. If you looked at which banks had e-bankings 10 years ago or 15 years ago, there are very few, but the ones with good e-bankings, either for business-to-business customers or for private customers, basically managed to grow, and others which don't offer e-bankings or probably disappear. And for me, that's going to go a similar path. So blockchain is a technology to solve a problem. However, unlike e-banking, I think most of the people won't realize it. Because blockchain is a technology which the end customer probably doesn't see if the bank is using it. It just sees the asset on top of it and probably the reduction in cost which it allows.
Great. Given that I've quite the most limited banking experience of the panelists, I'd like to say that the first time I worked for a bank was the day that we received our banking license. So my perspective, and I'd like to share, is really from the perspective of the clients and also the capital market side. I come almost 15 years of experience on private equity and venture capital as a capital allocator for institutions. And for me, the big question mark and the reason why I gravitated to this space was that when you look at the best performing asset classes over the last, doesn't matter what time frame you slice and dice it, 1, 3, 5, 10, 15, 5, 30 years. Private investments, so private equity, venture capital, private real estate.
The security a bit more intelligent because you can link a smart contract, you can hash it. I mean, intelligent in brackets, but it gives you a higher way or a better way of automating things. So from a technological perspective, it's just the next evolutionary step. I don't think it's very revolutionary, it's evolutionary. In terms of what products, for what will be supported, I think that's more a regulatory question. And I think the adoption will come in where the guidelines are clear.
Successful token generation event, which is actually true. So that's what we've done at the end of 2017. After that, we opened the office in Seoul, and we went to the launch of our mainnet, which is, if we want to get into the details, it's a POS, at that point, a POS protocol. We are switching to, it's POW. We are switching to POS, but that's not the topic of the day. We did a hackathon, tried to leverage services for our platform, and we also went through our share of listing, one of the latest one being with BitHub. I know that a couple of people from BitHub are in the audience today. Also going back to the point where I mentioned about moving to POS, we are collaborating with companies like Casper Labs and Todeq to help us move on from POW to POS. The reason I mention HDAC, apart from the fact I'm working there, is that HDAC is at the center of the blockchain technology developed within the Yondé group, that's including YondePay. Now I'm introducing YondePay. So YondePay is a blockchain-based technology focusing on fintech and B2B payments. Basically, in 2018, the company focused on consulting and delivering services locally in Korea. In early 2019, we started signing an MOU with Busan City, which turns out a little bit later in July to launch of the Smart Tour platform for Busan. Obviously, this kind of event, this kind of corporate event, forces us to do some changes. One of the changes would be to relocate our HQ from Seoul to Busan to make sure that we are working a little bit more tightly with the city of Busan. And a bit later this year, we're going to establish a P2P business platform. So, and labor cost reduction using national supports. This can be applied to a lot of players in the local industry. One example would be for retailers. Retailers will obviously benefit from the increased influx of tourism, but also the system will help them through like settlement file by providing a facilitated service for settlement.
It was said that by 2027, so hopefully within all of our lifetimes in the fairly near future, about 8 trillion in value will be stored in blockchain networks, which is of course a fairly large amount. Now, overall, I would say I entered this market in about 2014. At that point in time, the hype really did not catch on. Not many people knew what we were talking about when everybody spoke about Bitcoin or blockchain or whatever may have you. And that was that led to eventually the peak of the hype in about 2017. So this moment right here was about December, when everybody from your grandmother to the taxi driver was asking about Bitcoin and trying to buy it and thinking that that's gonna take you from essentially being the average working bee to the next Bill Gates. Of course, that's not what happens. That's not how life works. That's not how markets work. And what we saw throughout 2018, and some would say up to this period right here, and nobody really knows where it bottoms out because just corresponding purely to the Bitcoin price is not the right measure of the development of this technology. We would essentially, or predicted to rather, end up going up and plateauing in an area where there's actual productivity. So the 8 segments that I showed you later, those will be proliferated by blockchain technology to at least a 50% mark. And this is where we expect to be throughout the next decade, which we're about to enter in January. So, as the name suggests, crypto finance, this is the specific segment that we focus on. This can include a variety of different factors. So, there's on the left-hand side, you will see that there's financial markets and global banking. This is your investment banking area, this is your custody area. I myself used to be a banker, and this is exactly what a lot of it falls into. So you see aspects like clearing, you see aspects like loans, which my colleague Gerald from Signum mentioned earlier. You see the onboarding processes, asset tokenization, and custody, and a lot of such factors which are very prevalent, of course, in the banking space, aligned with blockchain in one way or another. So, currently, I mean, I'm coming out of Switzerland. A lot of my colleagues out here were working there for decades past. All of us worked with large banks such as UBS, Credit Suisse, Julius Baer, you name them. Now, none of them, besides the occasional announcements that they'll make, we're working on blockchain in this way, we're working on security tokenization in this way, are actually ready to offer any of these services. For the matter of fact, neither are the newer banks either. Neither are the digital banks in Europe. So why is nobody actually playing in this space if it's so promising and so great and all of us are here talking about it, right? First and foremost, it's the infrastructure. So you need to develop special infrastructure as a bank, which is not anything close to what you've had conventionally. So whereas moving from gold to paper money, all you needed to do is really carry a little bit less weight in that sense into your safe and just lock it up with the same lock. Here, you actually need a very robust system to store your private keys. In terms of products, for all those looking to seamlessly integrate Bitcoin into their core banking system, it's not going to be that simple. It's a completely different process. It does not have an ISIN code or whatever may have you for settlement. It does not exist on Clearstream or Euroclear or any traditional settlement platforms. So everything has to be reinvented anew. There's also the time to market. At a bank, generally, you have yearly approval cycles for budgets. So that's something everybody that's worked in banking knows, or in any large organization per se. You're gonna have to wait until the end of the year to get it approved for the next year rolling. And originally we'll have a small budget, and maybe as people see promise, it will grow further and further. Nobody's out there deploying $1 billion from the beginning to just fund whatever blockchain initiative they have. This aspect is our brokerage service. Here we're servicing about 12 banks in Switzerland. We're probably the second highest in terms of the traded volume in Switzerland, which surpassed about 50 million monthly, in terms of trading crypto assets for some of the biggest banks out there, not just in Switzerland, but in the world.
Then I left in 2015 for 8 months. Then I came back because I also have a dream to be PhD, and ultimately I finished my PhD. So I have, before that I worked as a software security engineer for Government of Pakistan, where I worked as a Deputy Project Director, Cyber Incidents Response Team, where I designed. And I have like some other certifications and some research paper and software architect for 40+ blockchain projects. So this is RNA Solution. It's a 4-year-old company. In 3 countries, we have 30 developers. One of them is Korean developer, and he lived in Pakistan for 4 months, and then he came back here in Korea. So the RNA Solution composition is, we have blockchain lab, and recently I have another dream to make one university, emerging technologies university. So we are starting the institute. And then I have a vision for 10 years to make it a research-based university in Pakistan. And of blockchain. So blockchain have 3 major troubles. The first one is scalability. You heard a lot. In scalability, we have a throughput problem, the transaction per second problem. Then we have a network delays in terms of scalability problem. Then we have metadata problems in scalability. And the second biggest challenge for the blockchains are interoperability. So in interoperability, if we categorize interoperability, we can categorize in two broader spectrum. One is blockchain to blockchain interoperability, and another one is blockchain to the digital system. From 30 or 40 years of our information age, we developed very big systems. We spent billions of dollars. We cannot throw those systems in dustbin. So how we can make those systems talk to the blockchain in certain cases. So these are two broader spectrum of interoperability. So there are some projects like Cosmos and Polkadot. They are working on interoperability of blockchain. So we are also working to make some module of Cosmos, and we are also we have some experience of developing protocol. And the protocol recently from Korea that we are building is called Colors Platform. The Colors Platform, we started to work 4 months ago, and we have developed their testnet, and in December and January, they're going to launch their blockchain very soon. There's a mainnet. So the second interoperability problem is oracles. Oracle is like the blockchain talk to the digital system. So we have experience of making this kind of systems, the interoperable blockchain and the oracles. So the interoperable blockchain to blockchain communication have some problems. For example, so we develop already blockchain. We are working on Explorer. In Explorer, we do not want to just open Explorer for our own client. So we are going to give. I talked with Binance people. We also want to give them an Explorer and also Cosmos and some other protocols.
To tokenize an asset, or if you have a cryptocurrency, when it's listed on an exchange, what we do is we provide the buying and selling prices for those tokens, for those cryptocurrencies, for those digital assets, such that the end client can exchange them. This is what Forfeit does. So now to actually dive into the future of digital assets, let me now reflect why there is a need for the blockchain and what's currently lacking in the financial infrastructure, and that prevents us actually from doing a lot of things that we have in mind in regards to tokenization, digitization of assets, trading them. Because the natural question is, if we are talking about the blockchain so much, what is it that's missing currently in the financial system that prevents us from doing a lot of things we want to do with the blockchain? So if you actually take a closer look how the current financial infrastructure works, what you will realize is that the processes and the procedures between big banks, financial infrastructure providers, exchanges, are still based on principles and procedures where transactions were paper-based. So that means 30, 40 years ago, if we did a transaction, I would actually write a contract. And I would specify the details of that transaction. And what I would do actually, I would send that document, that piece of paper, by mail. And then that document would travel around. A provocative statement saying that we can actually replace all of these different players that they exist because of how finance was done 30, 40 years ago, and that we can replace it with one single integrated solution, and that's called blockchain. So this is something that one of the previous speakers, Ivo Sauter from Swiss Digital Exchange, was referring today, is actually to have an integrated solution where the clearing and the settlement are actually done on a distributed ledger system. They're done on the blockchain. So this is actually what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to eliminate a lot of these different players through the use of the blockchain, so that all the things that are left in the end is just the buyer, the seller, the matching of the transactions, and one thing that's not listed here is liquidity. One of the digital asset banks, Signal, that actually segregated different players, and those were the infrastructure providers, custodian, issuers, banking service providers, marketplace, and other service providers. So what I'm trying to point out here is that the current digital asset structure is quite different from the one that we're envisioning in the future, and the one that you want to have in an institutional environment.
Accelerator and venture capital, investment, financing, and advisory. So this is total package, very unique form. So let me go straight into your company. So how many companies have you invested so far? And what are your key investment selection criteria? And tell us about a company you have invested and why have you invested?
So there's a lot of questions there, so thank you for the opportunity, and it's really a pleasure to be here in Seoul and Korea and then be a part of the blockchain ecosystem here. So thank you for having us, first of all. I mean, just for context, Blockchain Valley Ventures, we're 18 months, 19 months old now, since we started from our inception. What we did was we established an early stage venture fund for doing direct equity investments. So we're not a token fund, we're not necessarily in the crypto side of the business, but really our goal and our vision is to be the trusted institutional face for venture investments and venture activity in the blockchain space. To do this, we really work together with the traditional financial industry. So one of our partners and investors is the former CIO of UBS Bank globally, and therefore I think we have sort of that touch of the Swiss financial industry to bring this together to really be a trusted institutional partner for blockchain in Europe initially and now more globally as I've actually just relocated to Singapore and opening our office there. So what we're looking at, I mean, we've done now 8 investments over the past, let's say, 12 months of active investing period. This has been a combination of all industry sectors across both protocols. So we've done one protocol investment where we invested in a base technology. However, I would say our core competence and where we feel most comfortable is in our investment mandate, which is blockchain-enabled business. So really the applications coming on top of base-level infrastructure and technology, which are, you know, from a traditional venture capital perspective, able to quantify and qualify and screen through this process of what makes an attractive company. I mean, one example of this is, I think, one of our portfolio companies is Veritrack. It's a pharmaceutical supply chain, let's say, document management system, which really focuses on solving a very specific problem in this space, which is addressing regulations in the pharmaceutical supply chain process. And most people don't realize this, but recalls and let's say, the reason why people return products throughout the supply chain is because of damaged packaging. So it's nothing to do with defects of the product itself. It's really just packaging.
It's exploded, right?
Apologies, I'm Australian, so native English comes faster. But really understanding that how companies, especially such a regulated industry such as pharmaceuticals and products, can actually benefit from applying a blockchain-based let's say, audit trail in its documentation and management system. This for us was a key application that makes sense. We understand why blockchain, and it's a business structured as a SaaS business model, which is something a traditional technology investor would also find attractive. And this is why we joined around there together with Plug and Play and Seedcamp and many other leading investors in Europe.
Right. The reason why I said this is a very unique system. New ideas converged with the conventional practices. It's a very new, actually, sorry. It's a very new and unique. They provide advisory services in corporate finance and venture capital as well. Thanks very much. But since you're coming from Switzerland, well, maybe a macro question. What makes you think Switzerland unique compared to peer countries as a hub of blockchain?
Yeah, so I mean, certainly there's a reason why we're based in Switzerland, even though we act globally, and certainly see Asia as a prime region for adoption and implementation of blockchain. But Switzerland itself, I think, I mean, for those of you who have been here all day at the conference, I mean, you see with the regulatory environment, you have the penetration of players, so a traditional financial industry, first of all, which is a foundation for what we're talking about in blockchain. Second of all, the willingness of a regulator to issue licenses and bring, let's say, the new wave of banks coming through, so the Signum and Seba Bank. We have fully regulated financial institutions, and there's no surprise where you see, and you've also heard from the Swiss Stock Exchange, Evol previously, you have all of the key market infrastructure and market participants coming forward to work together on building the future. And together with this, with the penetration of traditional industry, working with new entrepreneurs, also venture capitalists coming to work together in the one ecosystem is a powerful combination, which is a recipe for, hopefully, successful outcomes.
Right, thank you very much. And I would like to open your contact details to those people who are interested in contacting your company.
Absolutely, always open door policy, and please do come and get in touch. Happy to connect.
So you can contact him. Yeah, thank you. And next, my guest is my old friend, which I bumped into today. Daniel Singh is a longtime friend of mine. But I didn't know that he has established a very special company, Kingsway Capital. I like the name Kings. It's a brick. Sorry, a brick. Oh, it's okay. Can I borrow? Yeah. Well, it's a brief introduction to Kings Capital. This is a very unique company, a Korean global company established in San Francisco and Seoul. So I think they're not just a Korean company, but a Korean global company. They do focus on global cross-border early-stage companies. So let me invite Daniel. Welcome.
Thank you.
Right. But what are your key investment strategies, and what are your key prospective areas of investment in blockchain? Straightforward question.
Okay.
So I know I'm sitting between long day and also the cocktail, so I'll try to be short. So I have many different hats. I run Kingsway Capital, but I've been working as VC for the last 18 years. So directly led about 33 companies under my belt, and also indirectly about 900 companies, because we also get into the LP business, which is investor to venture capital funds. Also, I've been working closely with this German entrepreneur called MCM over the last almost 5 years from now. And I also teach at Korean University where Professor Song also teaches. It's pretty good at connecting everyone. So I was able to meet some of you earlier today. So, like the Kingsway Capital, so we are fairly industry agnostic, but we have a very strong theme around cross-border. So wherever cohesive technology, Israeli, Korean, great R&D, but then market is necessarily not really big enough. So we try to really connect to the larger market opportunity, primarily G2 market, US and China. So that's a core theme of my investment strategy. But more specific blockchain actually is interesting, and I try to probably add a little flavor as an industry. Luxury brand, this is actually where you can sort of find a very, very interesting plug point for the blockchain technology, because luxury is all about authenticity, and then now industry are under heavy demand for sustainability and the traceability. So basically, whatever you can connect to your entire supply chain with a more plausible, cost-effective way to know where things are. Because now not only industry really demands this one, but consumer really wants to know where things are coming from. So tax domain, they usually demand is where the raw material source is coming from, with the many different FDA tax barriers out there. So we already have some built up technology out there, but it's not really not decentralized, and then you have to talk every different registration to verify where things are. So that has been challenged, and also a lot of supply chain and we hope them really to be more digital enabled, but then also challenges I've been coming through over the last 4 years as one of the spearheading president within MCM to bring the digital transformation. A lot of your end mile supplier are not ready there yet. So as an investor, what I can see is that usually luxury industry or retail industry, as by and large, they're fairly slower mover into the market. So now we're sort of getting into that, but this year itself, digital transformation is still over $1.2 trillion investment. So a lot of things happening over the market, but I think blockchain is still at the infancy. But a lot of philosophy are trying to claim it, and a lot of other luxury brand peers are trying to pick up. It's basically only test, but I'm sure it will come around soon because the luxury industry has a very strong demand out there too. So I hope it helps some of your answer.
Actually, he has given a very important role. Blockchain is in its infant stage. Yes, no technology is quite alone, and the value of the blockchain is creating synergies with the existing industries. Having said that, what do you think of the blockchain converging with conventional existing industries? Take an example. Since Daniel is a global person, share with me about the move of Libra, and they are trying to improve the many things, to provide financial services as they proclaim 1.7 billion people who don't have access to financial services. So what do you think the convergence of blockchain and with the conventional technologies and the prospect going forward?
So I think two aspects, one pro and one con. So I think one pro is extremely well-connected social network will be a great platform for people to adopt. This one of the newest kind of digital currency. Although still substance is not really clear how far they can go, but basically I think their point of view, I think if you think about your really intangible asset, not only what you have, what you own, but your actual social currency, if they can convert it into Libra, I think it'll be impeccable impact it will create. That's my sort of hopeful view of the Libra. Also, challenge is always as an investor, one thing you probably wouldn't do is something you go against with a large interest group. So Libra now you literally go against every central bank in the world. So I think not only is it trying to govern who's gonna own it, whatever, but I think still Facebook they are taking a lead, but unless they really create some central neutral venue, I think they will struggle a lot because one thing IBM also heavily investing into blockchain space, but then some of the adopter as a client with their real resistance was you guys always talk about decentralization, but then here you are trying to carbonate, you are trying to dominate it, and you are the sort of central service provider. It doesn't make sense. So I think that's a kind of controversial part that Libra has really overcome. But I think in general, I think with all your concept, if you can really connect to the social currency, I think the impact will be huge. But then I think it will take for a while.
Thank you very much. Let me turn the table around to the local focus. We've been talking about global issues now. Korea, we have a unique company called Chain Cabinet. Chain Cabinet is a blockchain startup company investing in early stage company in blockchain companies, and they are blockchain company builder, which I really welcome. Since you are in Korea, I'm inviting Sang-Jin Hong. Welcome. Actually, what do you think are distinctive opportunities as a Korean for Korean blockchain industry as an investor, and where do you see the investment opportunities are?
Thank you. So Chain Cabinet is basically an early stage investor on startups focused on blockchain technology. And we don't only operate in Korea, but we are based in Korea, Seoul. So we do see a lot of companies in Seoul, also in comparison to companies globally. And I see there are some distinctive points in Korean companies, even from the past, that's more relevant to blockchain technology and companies. Is that a couple of things. One, we have long history of dealing with digital assets. Mainly in video game space, where we have huge video game companies and industry and item resale industry, which is somewhat related to cryptocurrencies. Also, I think Korea is one of very few countries in Korea where we have large platform services, both national and also regional. Mostly when you look at platforms these days, it's all global players, right? Facebook, Google, WhatsApp. But we do have Kakao or Line or some other platforms so successfully, which is national and regional. So I think that's relevant in terms of how we are used to playing in that playing field, which is similar to blockchain. And more recently, especially this year, maybe a little bit last year, if you look at a lot of startups and institutional investments going into the blockchain startups, it's mostly, especially this quarter or this year, layer 2 protocol or DeFi. Everywhere we go, especially when we're at United States last month. That's what everyone's talking about. I definitely see the value in that.
In China, Shanghai, and Seoul here, South Korea. And I think probably technical innovation and breakthrough will come from the Western market. As we all know, that San Francisco and Silicon Valley is where a lot of like the initial technical breakthrough are coming from. But China and Korea are very important because it's where the business innovation, real use case adoption will come from. So that's why we are originally based in these three countries, because we believe that these three markets are the most important markets. And
I'm sorry, in what sense do your headquarters thought consider Korea as one of the key spots?
Well, we don't have the headquarters, but we are distributed through US, Korea, and China, as I mentioned. But I think every market is very important, as I mentioned, right? So Korea is very important, as Mr. Samjin mentioned, that it's very retail focused. Also, a lot of big tech companies are coming in, include GroundX, which is the Kakao's blockchain project, Samsung. It was a surprise, right, when they announced the Galaxy with the digital wallet. And now every company, every big corporate was waiting for just one big company to jump into the water, and now they saw that Samsung jump into the water, and the government didn't say anything, so they are all ready to get into it, right? For example, like LG is preparing for it, and a lot of big corporates. So I think Korea is very important for the mass adoption wise, and China, I think we already mentioned again at the mass adoption. But US is very unique because I think US will lead technical breakthrough, as I mentioned, but a lot of regulation thought leadership will come from the US market as well. So I think just blockchain is not, I mean, we want to talk about what's these like advantage of each region, but blockchain is global by its nature. So we have to take advantage of like all regions, and we have to combine efforts to move forward.
Also,